Oh no.
Welcome to episode 21 of the MLS Netboy Show. We're 5 seconds in and Chase has already had an accident.
Oh no. Dude, that was the first time I've ever had one like overflow on me like that.
Told you it's creamy.
I got that got that just all over my thigh. I don't think I got any on your floor, but I definitely I may have got a drop or two, and there's some on the table here as well. But
It's alright, we'll shampoo these when we leave anyway.
pull everything out of this room and shampoo it right now.
My name's Jacob. This is Chase alongside me, as I said. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Other than that slight mishap, I've had a pretty solid day. Did some at-home PT, as I was telling you about earlier, but pretty solid day. What about you?
Good day for me. I was at church, worked, had a garage sale. My parents were doing it, so I put a bunch of stuff there. I let go some good soccer stuff.
Ooh.
I gave away a AC Milan Ibrahimovic kit.
Oh,
Dude,
you didn't tell me you were selling that bad boy.
It was, a little kid wanted it really bad, but his parents didn't want him to have it, so I gave him a deal. I had a 2010 Wesley Sneijder Netherlands kit.
I remember that kit. There's been many a kick-arounds that you've worn that too.
Yup. I had some Timbers sweats. I had some more soccer sweats. I had a Valeri Timbers 2015. So
Dang, man. Is this like we were talking about this recently with our friend Noah moving out, but last time he moved in, when him and his wife got together and they found a place together, I remember we helped him move and he had to get rid of a bunch of like his like kind of, I don't even know what you'd call it, like memorabilia, like
the guy stuff.
the guy stuff that you kind of have to compromise on when you move in with your wife. Was that a matter of all this football stuff leaving? Was
No.
that factor into it, or was this you were just kind of ready to move on?
It's the opposite. I make her get rid of all of her stuff. Everything I own, you can see in this room, is right around us, honestly, except for the PlayStation in the living room.
That's true. There's a lot of soccer stuff in here and Star Wars stuff as well.
I just had an abundance of kit. I always go on Black Friday and I get like kits for like $15, and so eventually I got to phase some out, and then all Emma's family know I'm into soccer now, so like every Christmas I'll get like 4 different jerseys along with the ones I get, so I only wear like 10% of them anyway. I wear some to I wear my Timbers jersey to Timbers game. I wear my U.S. jersey when the U.S. plays, and that's about it.
So you're telling me you sold those instead of signing them and sending them out to one of our fans in a raffle giveaway?
Next time.
It's going to be like my mom like be the only one that signs up for it.
I'm a men's small as well, so there's got to be a very specific market for those. I got my first medium jersey I've ever gotten, actually, about a week ago. So
man's leveling up. He's been married for a year, and
it's all the baked goods that actually she's gonna bring some in.
Oh,
she's got
yes.
some chocolate brownie cake coming out.
Ooh.
So anyway, I guess some soccer happened.
Yeah,
this
straight into
weekend.
the soccer. Should we go over our match predictions from the midweek first, since that was just
it's kind of a fail of a week, honestly.
absolute bummer. We picked the worst 3 games to predict. I guess the El Tráfico game was pretty exciting.
Yeah, shout out to our buddy Ryan, who was actually at this game. The El Tráfico that was postponed from, was it opening weekend? It was going to be at the Rose Bowl. They made it a 4th of July game. The game ended up a 2-1 LA Galaxy win. So neither of us got this right. Me and you both predicted LAFC winning, so
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like LAFC just, I mean, they showed up for the game, like physically, but they did not like seem like they played well at all.
no.
I mean, I've been seeing a lot of memes of people like if found, can you return? And it's just like a picture of Dennis Bouanga. And it's like last seen in the like CONCACAF Champions League final.
Yeah, I think he's only scored once in the last set. I guess he scored on this Saturday, actually. But before this Saturday game, he'd only scored 1 in 7 or something like that.
Which is crazy because he was on track to be like the MVP, and then all of a sudden he just decided he's not nearly as good as Hani Mukhtar. So
Yeah, LAFC, I mean, everything about them's kind of come to a crashing halt. Um, yeah, a couple more 4th of July and then a Wednesday game we won't go over too much. Another one was Orlando beating Toronto 4-0. This was another prediction game for us.
Jeez.
I said 3-1 Orlando win. You said 1-0 Toronto win. So I got the result right because Orlando won 4-0. Toronto sucks.
Toronto does suck. I don't even know where you go from here.
Red card as well for Bernadeschi.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there has been interest for Insigne from Saudi Arabia, which, I mean, if you're Toronto, do you take that and like just to offload him and kind of just blow up the whole project and start over? Season's basically lost at this point anyways. No chance they're going to be getting any sort of silverware. So, I don't know. If I was Toronto, I'd take the deal. What about you?
It's tough to say, honestly.
Considering you manage Toronto and your FM save.
I'm in literally the exact same predicament online on Football Manager, and my team's been hot garbage, but I was like, okay, Insigne and Bernadeschi are eating up like 70% of my payroll right now. They're not doing great, but I'm going to give them to the end of the year and see if they actually decide they want to play on this team. And ever since I did that, like, I kind of tweaked their styles a bit. They've been turning up. So, they both have it in them. They just won the Euros like 2 years ago.
They do, but it's just a matter of if they even care. Like, they're going to get paid regardless. I mean, all they got to do is show up to training. They don't necessarily have to win games to get paid. They don't, right. They could vape on planes and then they could still be getting paid. Like, they'll take a fine. Yeah, it seems hefty for us, like, peasants. But for a guy like Bernadeschi, like that fine that he got hit with for vaping on a plane was nothing to him.
Exactly. It's I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think if Toronto gets a higher bid than what they paid for him, which they probably will because it's Saudi, I think it's not a bad move to let him go.
Also, you got to think where else in the world would pick up Insigne for the amount of money he wants to get paid. I mean, there's no top flight, like no top 5 league wants to pick him up. Maybe like a second division team in Italy or like a lower level like Serie A team, but nobody's gonna be able to afford him. Maybe like I don't think anybody in the Prem would even look at him actually. So there's nowhere else he really like realistically could go.
I think he could move a lot of places, just not for the pay and the kind of like he's supposedly a star in Toronto, but he hasn't fit the bill.
Yeah. I mean, he's been a flop in my book as far as a European star coming to MLS.
Definitely. Couple more games we won't go too into detail about because they were midweek. Miami, Columbus, 2-2 draw. Dallas hosted DC United, and DC United won 1-0 on the road. And then Charlotte and NYCFC had a 1-1 draw. But moving on to the weekend games, you're
going to skip over Colorado and Portland's thrilling 0-0 one-half game that got postponed.
I don't even want to talk about it.
I will say, I was really bummed about that because it was 4th of July. I was at my girlfriend's house with her family. We were in the backyard. As Jacob takes a giant swig of chocolate milk out of the carton.
Dutch-style chocolate milk.
But we were watching the game. They had brought a TV out into the yard, and there's just people all around their neighborhood lighting off fireworks. So we're able to watch fireworks while also just watching the Timbers play against Colorado, which I was hoping would be a good game. Just stupidly boring game, and then just gets postponed, and we're sitting around waiting for any sort of news, and then finally it's like, yeah, this game's not going to continue. No way.
I'm going to have nightmares of that stupid... This match is waiting for a weather delay with the stupid music in the background.
Yeah, that music.
The same fans waving their flag back and forth.
That's funny you say that because, like, we had it playing, and then my girlfriend's brother is like, I like this music. It's like, it's pretty cool. It's like the, like the guy
the crowd
like,
gets into it.
Yeah.
It's kind of catchy, but not for like, I had a similar story. I was at my parents' for barbecue for 4th of July. We're going to watch the game before we went out for some fireworks. And then... Yeah, 2 hours later, the game starts, like, literally, like, 5 minutes before we had to head out, so that sucked.
Anyways, that's the midweek. Let's move on to the weekend games.
Charlotte hosting Cincinnati, a 2-2 draw. Charlotte, though, was up 2-0 within 25 minutes. 2 outside of the boot flicks from from Karol Swiderski. You got to bring it up, Chase.
I showed you the clip right before this, but the second goal for Swiderski, the commentator, I don't know his name, but he just turned into Mickey Mouse. The guy just got super hyped and his voice got really high pitch. And I thought it was going to be like just a crack in his voice, but it stayed that way the whole entire time Swiderski was like celebrating. He just still had the same high pitched voice. But good on him for showing some emotion. But Cincinnati coming back, clawing out a draw. That's what you do when you're Shield contenders. You have to grind out results like that.
That's right. And next up, Columbus hosting NYCFC. This is a weird game. So Cucho Hernandez gets a red in the 68th. Their coach also gets a red card, and I think somebody else on the coaching staff. Columbus's man, I can't think of the coach's name. What's his name again?
Wilfred Nancy.
Yeah, Wilfred Nancy also gets a red card. I think for like barely stepping on the field or something weird like that. New York City goes up. Justin Hack scores in the 75th. Columbus ties it at the death and a point apiece.
Yeah, I mean, solid game overall. NYCFC doing their thing, thinking they're going to get a result, but Wilfred Nancy's team is just, I think, kind of a sleeper build for the MLS Cup this year. This team grinds out results, and they're really fun to watch.
Is that because you manage Columbus Crew in our FM?
Well, I mean, they're more fun to watch in my FM save than they are in real life. So,
and that's saying something because Columbus is one of the
dude,
better.
When my boys get cooking and they start pinging one-touch passes around, you just ask Ryan. He's seen it firsthand. You've seen it firsthand.
I have, because every time I play Chase in FM, it's always mysterious. My center backs go down with food poisoning the night before the game. Somebody tweaks an ankle in practice right before the match against Chase.
And then for whatever reason, my team will just be absolute terrible for the first 60 minutes. And then you'll see like a highlight that lasts like 2 minutes where my team just passes the ball around like one touch all the way around the field, and then they just score a banger.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Moving on to real soccer again. DC United hosting Inter Miami. A 2-2 draw.
Do you see Taxi Fountas' goal in this game was like a nice
finish.
Nice little back heel, like lay, and then a layoff for Taxi Fountas, just solid whipped like far post. Good goal.
Two back-to-back 2-2 draws for Miami. This one was better because it was on the road. But
also, yeah, Miami, 2 of their youth prospects scoring. I thought it was like Benjamin Kermashki. I don't know how to say his name correctly, but it was his first goal, and then Noah Allen also scoring. So 2 youth prospects coming through.
Yeah.
2 guys that might be giving Messi a run for his money once he gets here.
Yeah, I was going to say, both those guys, they're first goals for the club, so awesome to see. Next up, Montreal hosting Atlanta, and Atlanta with a 1-0 win on the road. Brooks Lennon gets the goal.
Gonna be honest, I don't know too much about this game. Did not watch very much about it. Atlanta to me has just lost all allure this season. I don't know what happened to them. And then, just same thing for Montreal. Montreal has just been a sad scene this year.
Which they've been better in recent weeks, but I agree because like going to last year, their crowd atmosphere I always admired. It has a European feel, which is kind of cool to see in MLS. And yeah, when they had Wilfred Nancy and had all those players last year, Mihailovic, it was just fun to watch. And this year, it's not. I don't really have a desire to tune into Montreal, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Next up, New York Red Bulls beating New England at home. 2-1 win over the Revs, and yeah, 2 big wins at home in back-to-back weeks against Eastern Conference teams kind of around them. So
yeah, it's solid for New York. I'm trying to remember. I always space the coach that took over his name.
For the Red Bulls?
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Is it Troy Lesesne?
Troy Lesesne. Good results for him. This guy came in, had like a good bump, and then they hit a little bit of a down period. But do you see the controversy of like the 93rd minute equalizer that was waved offsides or something? So
For
for
no,
New
but I
England.
bet Bruce Arena was fuming. This has
Oh, yeah.
happened to him. He's been gypped out of so many results this year.
Man's so old, he was probably coaching soccer before they were even like recording it with cameras. So seeing VAR be introduced to it is just completely foreign to him.
Fun Bruce Arena fact. Did you know
So many of those.
he really is like the most interesting man in the world? Did you know he coached lacrosse actually?
Actually, yeah, I heard that like very like randomly once.
Yeah, because he played lacrosse and soccer in college, and then I think they needed a coach, and he started as a lacrosse coach, but then a soccer like position opened up, and then he led us to not make the 2017-2018 World Cup.
Maybe he'll retire and coach lacrosse at like the collegiate level again.
That would be kind of interesting. But yeah, New York, they were dead last in the East. Now tied on points for the 9th spot with 26 points with Montreal.
Grinding for the playoffs. That's all you got to do, man. You just got to grind to that 9th place spot, and you could end up the champion.
Love it, sort of. Next up, we got Toronto hosting St. Louis. St. Louis with a 1-0 win on the road at Toronto. Toronto keeps getting piled on, and
So bad.
I mean, what else can you say? St. Louis, though, top spot in the West, and now they even have the best points per game. So before, like LAFC, for example, was caught up with them, and you could kind of argue, they're in a bad run of form. But now, St. Louis has the best points per game actually in the league, the second best, behind Cincinnati. So kind of quietly now too. I feel like the allure and the hype
went down. I think people stopped paying attention to St. Louis fans because they were really annoying. So everybody kind of decided to like quiet down. Which I say that having gone to St. Louis and like met like quite a few nice people there, and like my girlfriend's like family lives there as well. But there was like some annoying guys there that were just like Timbers beat them, and they just still like the league underestimates us. Like, dude, you were in first place when we beat you. Like all MLS media is just raving about you. Like, shut up.
And I think it's kind of cool. Like they just fit into the league so well. Like stadium fans, like their fans are already like barking at other people. Like what a great addition.
Yeah, definitely a good pick for MLS to bring them into the league because they've just slotted right in. Solid fan base. I think they'll be strong for years to come. And it's almost like if you were to do like I'm trying to think of it in like terms of like, you ever watch like WWE, like a Royal Rumble? Like if you were to throw a team out to like introduce a new one, who would you throw out if you were to like bring in St. Louis? Like keep the numbers down in MLS. If you were to throw one team out of the league so that you could have brought St. Louis in, who would it be?
It's tough because, oh man, I want to throw out one of the
just nothing.
One of the teams one of the cities that have two teams, right? And all those like New York or LA, those cities can suffice two teams, but it's tough because there's so many other markets in America. So because we're such a big country that could suffice, more places. Ohio of all states has two teams, which is, I mean, and they're both supported.
They're
very
both well supported. Yeah.
Man,
surprised you're not just saying Seattle, just off the top here.
Oh, I hate Seattle, but I mean
they deserve their spot in the league for sure.
Oh man, Colorado on them kind of has to be the logical, like.
I would say Colorado, or another one would be Minnesota. Minnesota's a big, just like nothing team for me.
Really?
I don't like Adrian Heath. I think he's overrated. I think he sucks. And like, when have they really actually pushed for anything other than just being like, oh, we're in the playoffs?
There's two runs I can think of, but both of them were pretty. One of them was a real choke job. It was the COVID 2020 season. They were up 2-0 in the Western Conference Finals, so the game to make it to the MLS Cup Championship. They're up 2-0 on the road at Seattle, playing in the empty COVID stadium. And I think it was like the 76th minute. They conceded 3 goals to lose that game in about 14 minutes.
I remember that.
Would have taken them to MLS Cup, and I was pissed when I was watching that game because I did not want Seattle to make it to another cup because this was coming off the year they just won it. And then I think that previous year they made it to the Open Cup final and lost to Atlanta. So
I don't know.
that's like their two biggest moments.
I'm not the biggest fan of Minnesota and what they've done. I mean, Colorado at least, unique location,
Got some history.
cool stadium, good history. They've produced some youth prospects that have gone abroad. But yeah, I don't know.
That was a dangerous question right there.
that was one that we could have gone into for a bit longer. That would be a fun one to like in a future episode go
Which-
down the list of like the original teams and then just each like expansion team. Who would you knock off, or would you just not introduce the expansion team? But that's another episode. We're still talking about scores
That's
here.
Great. Chicago Fire hosting Nashville. Chicago with a 1-0 win against Nashville. So that's a big win for Chicago. I mean, there's every time I say this, I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now. They're 11th place in the East. But same with New York, tied on points. Let's see. This is funny. New York City, Charlotte, Chicago, New York Red Bulls, and Montreal all have 26 points. That's spots 9 through 13.
That's crazy. And then Toronto below them on 19 points. So those 5 teams are sitting pretty right now. I mean, not necessarily like an insurmountable amount of points, but they're sitting pretty right now. But still, yeah, just kind of crazy how competitive the Eastern Conference is this year.
It's going to be an interesting race at the end of the year. Big win for Chicago. Moving on, though, Houston Dynamo hosting Sporting Kansas City. And this was a 2-2 draw. Alan Pulido brace. Did you see that?
Dude, this was the game of the back heels.
Did you see that?
Alan Pulido scored a goal that was a back heel assist. And then there was the Houston that just looked like prime Arsenal, like Arsene Wenger ball, just like pinging it around, like back heel nutmeg through the defender to Hector Herrera, who runs onto it and then squares it to Ibrahim, who just slots it away. Which I loved the goal, but I would have loved to see him just dribble it into the net because all of Sporting KC's backline had given up. The keeper was just stranded. I love the disrespect of just like dribbling it into the net.
Which, honestly, do you remember when these two were like kind of like rivals? Like back in like 2012 when Houston and Kansas City were both in the East because the conferences were weird, and these guys had a lot of big playoff games against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kansas City you expect to be a good-looking team, but Houston Dynamo with Ben Olsen at the helm, he's got these boys playing.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, Houston just all of a sudden turning up and like actually playing some games.
Moving on, we got
Minnesota United versus Austin FC
at Allianz Field. You know whose debut was today or during this game?
Who's that?
Timo Pukki.
Oh, and look at that.
Right.
They lost 4-1 because Timo Pukki is a trash signing for MLS, dude. Why would you go out and get a guy who just looks... I mean, yeah, he was good in the championship 3 years ago. Good for you guys. I hate that signing. You know what I think really upsets me is like I listen to like the MLS Extra Time podcast and there's that Kaylin Kyle, like that commentator's on there who her like father-in-law is Adrian Heath, and she just sucks up to Minnesota United so much and like talks to, like, as if they're this great powerhouse in the league and like Timo Pukki's this amazing signing. I was like, dude, that guy sucks. He's not that good. He's not going to revolutionize Minnesota United. But you already know, like, as soon as he scores a goal, MLS is going to be, like, all over it on, like, Instagram, just talking as if it's like, look at this amazing goal, and it's going to be some stupid tap-in.
And, yeah, I agree. But I want to focus on Austin because Austin quietly... Chase is going to get carried away if we just slander Minnesota this whole time. But... Austin, you know, they had that terrible start. They lost to that Haitian team in the Champions League. They're in 5th place right now. Some big win at Minnesota, which is not the easiest place to play.
They needed that. They needed a big pick-me-up. They didn't and that came in the form of just like grinding out results, not signing an old Finnish striker who's past it. Jacob tried to like hide his sneeze. His cord pulled his water bottle at the same time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just already going like I'm going back to just talking crap about Minnesota. But
another signing they made just today, actually, I believe, Ismail Tajori-Shradi, the former
I
New
saw
York City
rumors
guy,
of that, but I didn't think it was going to happen.
officially went through today. There's a bunch of transfer that's happened since the windows open up. We'll cover that right after this, but yeah, huge win for Austin, back in the playoff spot. I know a lot of people picked them kind of placing around the same place they did last year, but moving on, Colorado hosting FC Dallas. Colorado with a big win at home against Dallas, a 2-1 win. I may be mistaken, but I want to say this is Colorado's. Yeah, this is their first win at home. Took until July.
That is sad.
Still in last place for Colorado, but yeah, big win over Dallas, who Dallas just beat LAFC. That just shows this. That's what this league's about, man.
Yeah, true, but I mean Dallas is also just missing some key players, Jesus Ferreira especially.
You're right, but I mean they beat LAFC without him.
True.
The Robin Fraser game plan was just elite.
I don't know. I fully expect Colorado to be challenging for the wooden spoon this year, unfortunately.
I think I believe they're officially the worst team in the league. So yeah,
I think they're on 17 points after 23 games.
Yeah. Worst points per game average. So literally only up for Chicago. And that was with them
Colorado.
Winning. For Colorado.
Yeah, just two terrible teams that start with C.
I hate how those two can be just associated like that. I would be upset if I was a fan of either of those teams. LA Galaxy at home playing Philadelphia Union. LA Galaxy with a 3-1 win. Two big wins at home over two good teams, Philly and LAFC. 3 points for the Galaxy.
And I think what's really central to this is like Ricky Puig just finally scoring some goals. Puig, however you say his name. Man is just kind of carrying this team on his back. But good for them. They're still not defensively solid. They're still conceding goals, but I think they've kind of realized like in order to win games, they're not going to be able to like shut teams out. They just have to go out and outscore teams, which, hey, it works for them. Like these past 2 weeks, it's worked for them.
Yeah. Next up, LAFC hosting San Jose Earthquakes. Shout out to our buddy Ryan, who is also he's slowly morphing into an LAFC fan. He was at this game as well.
You know what's funny is when he first moved here, he was like, because he used to live in Washington. He was a Sounders fan. Then he moved to Oregon, became a Timbers fan. Now he's in California, and he is trying to decide between LAFC and LA Galaxy. So, man's just a true plastic fan in MLS. Just migrating down the West Coast.
He's gonna hear this when he's doing his exercise bike riding. Remember, because that's when he listens to us.
Yeah, we'll get a quick text from him.
This was an interesting game, kind of. Buanga scored a PK, so he remembered how to score finally again. But San Jose's goalkeeper Daniel got a red card in the 56th minute for like a long ball came and he rushed out of the box and got the ball away. And it looked kind of like he headed it on TV, but he actually used his arm outside of the box, and ref claimed it was intentional. But disappointing for LAFC. They can't take down 10-men San Jose at home.
San Jose is a good squad, man. You can't just go in thinking you're going to be able to handle these guys even when they're a man down. So good on San Jose. Screw LAFC.
And unfortunately, Vancouver Whitecaps hosted Seattle Sounders. Seattle won 3-2. They came back. They got a late winner from Yeimar, the center back. But this was the Leo Chu show. He had 2 goals, and he had the cross for the game winner for Yeimar.
Kind of crazy. Seattle's in second place, and they've just been it's been really quiet about them. Usually you would just see like the whole like league just kind of fawning over them and talking about them a lot, but I haven't heard anything about Seattle. They're just kind of quietly putting together performances right now.
They had that really good start to the year, like dominant looking, and then it was that Portland game which made them like fall off of a cliff for like 2 months or so. And
As
now
it
they're
tends to do.
now they're finding their form again and just picking up points. They're second place, looking good.
When do they play Portland next?
September 2nd, I want to say.
You're right. They have about 5 more games to keep collecting points before Timbers knock them down a peg.
Watch, we're gonna go up to the
We're gonna
game or
lose
something.
6-0.
It's actually gonna happen one of these times. We always joke about it, but that's the week.
There's one more game you skipped, actually. And this was an exciting one. Real Salt Lake beating Orlando 4-0.
Oh, man.
Chicho Arango's first game back in MLS, scored in the 23rd minute. And really just a true statement for RSL that they're here and they're true contenders for like a top half finish.
Yeah, I really wish we signed this guy, Portland.
Hey, man, you don't like Frank Boley, Nias Goda, Felipe Mora, and Nathan Fagasa, all as part-time players for our striker position. We have 4 guys that can't even put up the output of one dude.
Boley's been
good, but Chicho Arango would probably blow those 4 guys out of the water.
I mean, if he's playing Geo Ball, you never know. But
that's true.
We
didn't even get to talk about Gio out because Timbers didn't get a full game this week.
Pretty representative of just the club in general.
Hey, we'll talk about Gio out next week when we lose again and have some player decide he doesn't want to play for us anymore.
Yeah. I want to go over some transfers that have happened since the window's open, just real quick.
All right. Hit me with it. I'll give you my quick... I don't know. I've kept up with some of them, but I'll just give you my quick hot takes on it.
This was a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to get caught up. Minnesota United transfers Luis Amaria, the striker. Remember when they signed him, he said he'd score like 25 goals a season or something like that? They transferred him to Mazatlan in Liga MX, the same club Ake Lobo went to, actually. New England, I forgot. We didn't talk about this. They bought out Josie Altidor's contract. So
they didn't want any wasted space on that bench, dude. Get rid of that loser.
Some other ones, Scott Arfield, Canadian international at Rangers, signed for Charlotte. They love a random British.
That's such a weird, obscure signing.
I bring that up because Ryan, our friend, he's a huge Celtic fan, and they just signed a Rangers midfielder. And
he's also managing Charlotte in our FM save.
Yeah. Timo Pukki signed for Minnesota United.
Boo.
Chicago Fire got this designated player, Ousmane Doumbia, and he was a midfielder. He's Swiss, I believe, and he's like 26, and he's barely even played in the top division in like Switzerland. And so a lot of their fans are like, "What are we doing? This is Chicago, like a big city. We should be able to sign some names."
I'm looking this guy's stats up right now.
RSL got another Colombian midfielder, Nelson Palacio. The Timbers finally signed a center back, Miguel Araujo from FC Emmen in the Eredivisie.
Do you see we're linked with another guy, actually? Keep going, and I'll tell you who we're linked with, because I just saw it.
The most famous, we'll get to that one. Colorado, this was a funny one for me. Colorado signs a player from their second division team, their MLS Next Pro team, immediately loaned him out to Costa Rica, which I thought was just funny for Colorado.
Oh, poor guy.
But a big move for them, actually, that just happened. They got Andrew Gutman from Atlanta United. Colorado officially signed. They also are signing a number 9 from Palmeiras in Brazil. The Revs, New England, signed Ian Harkes, former DC midfielder who is kicking it in Scotland. LAFC sent Kwadwo Opoku to Montreal.
That's a huge signing for Montreal.
Definitely. Atlanta United signs Tristan Muyumba from the French league. Felipe Gutierrez, the former Sporting Kansas City Chilean center mid, he played for them like 3 years ago, came back, and I saw this meme where it's like Peter Vermees just signs these players who like there's like these veteran role players who played for him like 4 years ago, and then he'll just re-sign them. He did it with Kyrie Shelton. I want to say Taxi Fontas, Yuri Russell. They just love signing former players.
Just obscure players.
LAFC gets Mamadou Fall. Remember that giant center back they had? They loaned him to Villarreal.
He came back.
He came back. He made a few appearances for the first team. And then the Red Bulls transferred Christian Cáceres Jr. to Toulouse in the top flight in France.
Solid signings all around. What's the one signing that just happened that you think will be the biggest signing mid-season right now?
Honestly, we were just talking about RSL, and they've hit on some of these random signings. I think this Colombian midfielder, Nelson Palacio, the Anderson Julia has been good for them. They just got Chicha Arango. Jefferson Savarino's there. They have some other Colombian winger they signed before this season started. He scored a screamer against the Timbers in the Open Cup. And they're just... yeah, I watch Open Cup. And they're just building
Just
their
to watch
team
the Timbers lose.
with these good players, but then they're building a solid spine and core. And these players are all like not that old. They're like 25 or something. So
I agree. I think Chicho Arango is going to be, for me, I think the biggest signing. I think RSL is going to have a huge turnaround. Other than that, I would say the Mahalo Opoku signing for Montreal is going to be huge. Maybe not this year, but next year I think it'll be big for them.
Montreal kind of loves getting these guys who on the teams they're signing them from. They're not really like the main guy, but then Montreal just turns them into like these contributors, like they did with Mihailovic, Mason Toy from Minnesota. Bryce Duke is contributing already from Inter Miami. But
yeah, did you So we'll talk about it really briefly before we dive into the next thing. But a little bit of Timbers news: Santiago Moreno hands in a transfer request amidst some controversy, in the Timbers. Timbers are in bad form. Gio decides to bench Moreno. Moreno hands in a transfer request. I have my thoughts on it, but I want to hear your thoughts real quick.
Rough week for Portland sports fans. First, Dame requests the trade out. Now we got Santi Moreno handing in a request.
Man was only here because Damian Lillard was here.
Apparently. And the funny thing is, the Timbers just like a week ago posted like this little like in-depth video about Moreno, like telling about his story. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, cool. Like, this guy's awesome. Like, it's been a weird year because you can see plain as day the potential he has, but he hasn't even got a goal this year. He's got like 6 assists though, so he's setting up people, but hasn't, like, I think last year he got 7 or 8 goals.
Yeah, I think last year he was on 8 goals, 6 assists. But yeah, kind of interesting because in the off season, LA Galaxy offered Timbers $2 million for Santi Moreno, and Timbers turned it down, of course. But it was interesting now that he put in this transfer request, and LA Galaxy have some transfer sanctions, so they're only allowed to do transfers within the league. So they're kind of the front runners that are looking at him, but I don't think Timbers are going to accept anything for around $2 million. I mean, when you look at what was it, that Bryce Duke, Ariel Lassiter, and Kamal Miller deal, Montreal, I think, ended up paying for those two. I mean, Bryce Duke was the main guy there, but they paid around like $1 million or $2 million in GAM, I think, if I remember correctly, as well as sending Kamal Miller for those two players. And he didn't put up nearly as much output as Santi Moreno did. So obviously Timbers are going to want a lot more money for a player of this caliber that's still, I think, 23, 24, so really young, has a lot of his career ahead of him, and would instantly improve an LA Galaxy team.
I was gonna say it sucks if he goes, but I think it makes sense for the Galaxy to go in pretty hard for this guy. I heard apparently a tidbit from when the Galaxy put in that offer for him that he actually wanted to go. It like himself personally wanted to go. That was just what I read from some reporter. You never know, but
And it kind of goes hand in hand with this transfer rumor I was reading about. So Portland Timbers are looking at Brazilian winger Antony, not the one at Manchester United, but Antony Alves Santos. So he plays for a team in Portugal right now, and he's only 21 years old. Not huge goal scoring or assist numbers, but he's young. Looks promising, and Timbers kind of seem like they're pursuing him right now, which to me kind of signals that they might be open to letting Santi Moreno actually leave rather than trying to repair that relationship, unfortunately. So we'll see. I don't know. It's kind of interesting watching the Timbers because I feel like we've gone through these phases where, like, back when we won MLS Cup was like we had all these Argentines on our roster. You remember? It was like,
yeah.
Even before that, we had like just a bunch of Argentines, and then we've kind of shifted to having like a bunch of Colombians on the roster, and now it's like seems like we're starting this period where like Evander's our main guy, and we're gonna start stocking up on like Brazilian dudes. To like we got him, Nathan Fogassa. We're looking at a Brazilian winger. It's like they're playing FIFA like Ultimate Team, and they're trying to get those green links. So they're just like, dude, who else is from this country that we can bring in?
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting move. I don't know if you checked out the highlights, but a lot of people are saying he was very like Asprilla-esque. Like,
oh,
when he gets his head down and he can take on a player, like he's really flashy, but he was
no end product.
He kind of had tunnel vision almost. Like he was, like you knew. I mean, I don't know. This is a highlight reel, but so it was only showing stuff like specifics. But he was beating defenders with. He's super quick and he's beating defenders with ease, but he wouldn't see like an open pass or something.
And I mean, who knows? Like 21 years old, there's a lot of room for that to change. And also, he's playing in Portugal, which I think is like 6th or 5th like ranked league in the world. So
the team he played on ended up in 5th place too, and he was solid contributor.
So, from what I saw, the Timbers offered 2.8 million, and I think the team said they turned it down. I forget what team it was he plays for, but they won at least $5 million. So big investment from the Timbers, but it would also be a huge investment that could pay off greatly for them in the future.
See, when you said though, if you see this signing happening because Moreno's out, I actually think this is meant more of as a replacement for, I think either Laria or Yimi Chara or somebody like that is on the outs, honestly, at the end of this season. We got a lot of contracts up in Portland, and apparently Ryan Clark, the Timbers beat reporter, said Timbers were interested in a young winger like a few weeks ago, which is before Moreno put in their request. And what I'll say is Gio, as it's been pointed out, he's had a lot of spurs with these random players. Happened with Ivicic. It's happened with Asprilla. It happened with Williamson. It happened with Liam Ridgewell when he first got to the club. But all those relationships, he's repaired, actually. And they ends up with a spur. There's a disagreement, but Gio ends up mending a relationship, which take that as you will. But
at this point, dude, I could care less. Just get rid of Gio. It's not worth, like, yeah, he might be able to repair relationships, but his results on the field have been so bad. So bad this year. He's such an up and down coach. I want the Timbers, like, as an organization, to find somebody that can just be consistent for once. I don't want us to make MLS Cup just to not make playoffs the next year. It's so frustrating to watch.
I agree. I completely agree. And I'm not minimizing this at all with what I'm about to say next. But would you trade that? Because Portland has
seen
a
Robin Fraser.
Well, Portland has seen a decent amount of success. We have been kind of spoiled. We have a pretty high bar. We've had a pretty packed stadium, a good brand, pretty recognizable team. And we have made the playoffs many years, whereas you look at a team like the Earthquakes, San Jose, the Rapids, the Whitecaps, where they'll make like the playoffs like once in like 6 years.
That's true, but I think the fact that like our fan base is so involved and packs out a stadium, I think that should warrant the fact that like we should have higher standards in those teams. Like San Jose was not getting good fan turnout for a long time. Colorado wasn't, Chicago, DC, like if you were to look just purely based off like fan support and then give that like a direct correlation to like who's warranted to have more success, I would say Timbers are warranted more success than a lot of those just teams that fans don't seem to care at all, you know? That for me is why I would say Timbers need to be in search for like the next like Wilfred Nance or the next Jim Curtin, or even, you know, put a bid in for Bob
Ben
Bradley.
Olsen.
Gosh, no. Absolutely not. I think Bob Bradley would be a good shout for a Timbers job.
I mean, we
If
just
I was-
got Toronto's scouting director.
If I was Merritt Paulson and I owned the Timbers and I saw that there was, you know, some uncertainty with Jim Curtin and his project in Philadelphia, I would be putting in a big bid for him. I'd say, you know, come here, we'll give you a 3-year, 4-year contract, work your magic, and then if you want to go to Europe, we'll let you go to Europe. But I would much rather see us make a move like that, even if it was only for 4 or 5 years, because I think managers kind of burn out their life cycle. Most normal managers burn out their life cycle within 4 to 5 years.
Interesting topic. I think Jim Curtin, though, was rumored that they're coming to agreement to stay in Philly. I believe.
I think it was he just agreed a contract extension. That's why I was saying if I was Merritt Paulson and I heard there was uncertainty back before he had agreed it. But I mean, Jim Curtin's also said he wants to go to Europe, so that's why I said, you know, put in a deal, try and get him here for 4 years, and then let him go to Europe.
Brendan Rodgers, welcome to the Portland Timbers.
That guy's a weirdo.
Next up, we got a little bit of a segment here. So I was out for a week, and Chase was talking about club partnerships in MLS, and it got me thinking, what are some random MLS teams that have these foreign club partnerships where you've never really heard about them? You don't see any evidence that they even have a partnership, but sure as you know, they do have one. So I compiled a list, thanks to Football Manager mostly, that all the MLS teams that did have foreign partners. I did most of them. I did some that I thought were interesting. There were some teams that had like USL or like American affiliates, but I went foreign, and I've got 15 teams that all have an MLS or all have a foreign club affiliate. I'm going to read those names, and then I'm going to give Chase a foreign club, and he has to tell me which of those MLS clubs is affiliated with them. The only caveat is I think there's 2 of them that are no longer partners, maybe 3. So
recent partnerships for a couple of them then.
a couple of them were old, but not anymore. So the teams that have these foreign partnerships are LAFC, FC Dallas, New England Revolution, San Jose Earthquakes, Atlanta United, Seattle Sounders, Inter Miami, Orlando City, Austin FC, DC United, FC Cincinnati, Colorado Rapids, Real Salt Lake, Chicago Fire, and CF Montreal.
Some solid teams in there. All right. Hit me with it. What's the first foreign team?
Bologna in Italy. Serie A.
Ooh, I feel like I know this one. So there was one night Ryan and I played FM really late, and we were just looking at like weird connections, but this was like a month or 2 ago, so it's been a while. I think, if I remember correctly, I think Bologna, I don't know, I want to say Chicago, but I feel like that's wrong. It's either Chicago or Colorado, and it's probably neither of those.
Incorrect on both.
Who are they linked with? Is it DC?
Are you ready for the answer?
Hit me with it.
CF Montreal.
Oh, that's right.
Joey Saputo, the owner, owns both of the teams.
Stupid connection. What a weird connection.
There's been a couple players go back. They had an English center back who was actually a Tottenham academy kid. He was, I want to say his name was like Lewis Banks, who's this huge, tall, skinny, kind of like a Jack Elliott type of center back. But then he actually transferred to Bologna permanently. Yeah, CF Montreal, Safir Taider, the Algerian international midfielder. I don't know if you recall who played in Montreal. Was from Bologna. So,
and for those of you who don't know, like these affiliations between clubs generally just means they have some sort of agreement where they either sponsor each other or they can trade players or they get first bid on players from each other's teams. Generally some sort of agreement like that, or they'll share youth prospects, something like that.
Yeah, a lot of the agreement, it was interesting to read about because I looked up each one. A lot of them were like strategic partnership, and the foreign clubs want to increase their brand in America, and then the American club gets kind of dibs to send over like hot prospects to train in the off season with them. I obviously didn't include the Red Bulls and New York City FC because
those were the only two I was going to get.
Those ones were kind of given. How about RC Lens from Ligue 1?
RC Lens from Ligue 1.
The team Adam Buxa transferred to, actually.
Oh, that's tough because that's leading me to think it's going to be New England. But I feel like that's a trick. I feel like it's not going to be New England.
They actually have another Polish former MLS player, Frankowski, the Chicago winger.
I'm going to say it's not going to be either of those teams because I think that's too easy. I'm going to go RC Lens with Real Salt Lake.
Incorrect. See, this is the only one I couldn't verify, actually. This is what FM says. They're connected on FM, but every other one has a legitimate partnership on their club website or something like that. This one I found nothing of, other than the MLS team, bought a striker from them, and it's Inter Miami.
Interesting.
Which, like I said, this is the only one that's kind of dodgy, and I couldn't technically verify, but if you believe FM
has some interesting... Because they have, like, every team's affiliate, but there's some that you would never expect. Like, for example, I think they had on there that, like, I gave Ryan a hard time about this because he's a Man United fan, but Manchester City and Celtic are actually affiliates. And I don't think it's in any shape of, like, Celtic isn't part of, like, City Football Group, but they have some sort of agreement about, like, youth prospects or something that rarely ever gets used.
This one should be a home run because... You'll know it, I think. Bayern Munich.
That is... Which is kind of tricky because I know it was historically FC Dallas, right? But I believe they were also like brokering a deal with LAFC.
Correct. LAFC currently, historically FC Dallas. And yeah, Dallas sent all sorts of their prospects there. Jesus Ferreira, I believe, tried when they would go in the offseason. Justin Che, Chris Richards, all of these kind of big-time FC Dallas Academy kids. So, yeah. How about Penarol, the Uruguayan club, the powerhouse? You know what I'm talking about, that yellow and black team?
Don't think I know any teams from Uruguay, honestly.
They produced Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez from...
This, to me, screams Inter Miami, but we already said the team that they're linked with, so I'm not going to say it.
One of the teams is on here twice.
Ooh, not going to be this one. I'm going with San Jose Earthquakes.
Incorrect. This is actually LAFC again.
Really?
When they signed Brian Rodriguez, the winger they I think loaned out to Villarreal, they entered in a partnership with Penarol because they got Diego Rossi from there and also Brian Rodriguez, these young, dynamic Uruguayan national team wingers. So that's a partnership which is funny because since then, I don't think they've really signed any Uruguayan prospects or from that team, which is interesting.
They had those two, and they didn't find real success. They're just like, forget it.
Yep. This is a weird one. And this was kind of, I wasn't going to include this one, but I am. This is the only non-European team. African Lyon, the Tanzanian Premier League club.
Tanzanian Premier League.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is going to be a very obscure shout.
I may be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but what I was reading, one source said this MLS team just outright bought this club.
So
And
it's got to be a big market.
And I have never seen any connection with this team.
I want to say New England, just because I feel like Stan Kroenke would do that. Just like, oh no, he owns Colorado. That's right. Then Colorado.
No, actually.
Is it gonna be San Jose?
No, you want to do one more guess? It's gonna surprise you.
FC Cincinnati.
Nope. Seattle Sounders
What?
with African Lyon.
What do they even have? Oh, they have Nuhu. I was gonna say, do they even have any African players?
Yeah, just knew who I think. Maybe there's some Tacoma Defiance player, their affiliate club. Yeah, apparently they're in some partnership with this. I saw it on FM. I looked it up online. Yeah, they're partners. Which is a weird one.
That's weird.
Next, Tottenham Hotspur.
What?
This was in 2010. As far as I know, I didn't see a partnership on FM. I haven't seen anything new about this.
2010, so it's got to be an old MLS team.
It was when it was announced. So I guess yeah,
Can't be LAFC.
it does cut out some teams.
Can't be Miami. Can't be Orlando. Can't be Cincinnati. Can't be Atlanta. Can't be Austin. So it's either DC United, Chicago, New England. I don't even know if Montreal was in the league back then. I think they were. San Jose, Colorado. Ooh. Maybe it's Colorado. Because that was when they went to Colorado for their All-Star game, right?
They did. I was actually at that game.
Maybe that's I'm like over here. I'm over here like that meme of the girl like thinking with all like the graphs and stuff around it. I'm like thinking like 4D chess right now.
Is Colorado your guess?
I feel like that. I don't know if that connection makes sense. I'm gonna say DC United. Shout out of left field.
Incorrect.
Stupid game. Stupid game.
San Jose Earthquakes and Tottenham Hotspur had a strategic partnership in 2010. Simon
Oh my
Dawkins,
gosh.
the English midfielder, was sent from Tottenham to San Jose, and he played for San Jose during that famous Shield winning year.
Famous. I don't know if many people remember that Shield winning year.
Let's move on. You guessed Colorado. Let me think of a different one here. All right. Real Madrid. Which MLS club affiliated with Real Madrid?
It seems too easy to say Real Salt Lake. But I feel like that's the only one that makes sense. Other than some big flashy club. But I really hope it's Real Salt Lake. I'm going to say Real Salt Lake.
Real Salt Lake is correct.
I was going to say that one's too easy to not get.
The team RSL was named Real Salt Lake as kind of an homage to RSL, or to Real Madrid.
Real Madrid was named in an homage to RSL.
When the team was owned, and they did have a partnership actually, and Madrid, it was part of a bigger movement to kind of have outreach and academy presence in not just Utah but in America in general, and they partnered with when the expansion bid came out, and yeah, the name was like a celebration of Real Madrid.
That's interesting. I feel like most people don't know that. I think a lot of people just clown on Real Salt Lake for having that name. So kind of cool, actually.
And I think they actually played each other in a friendly that first year, and they did actually, which is kind of cool actually. Next
another
up,
one.
man, this was a fun one to look up. So,
Hold up. Josiah Cortez. I'm spitting out his full name right now because he just showed me the score. USA and Canada are playing currently, and it's 1-1 in like the 98th minute. Let's go. Brandon Vasquez shutting up all the Jesus Ferreira stands out there. Anyways, it's back to our game.
I was kind of hoping we'd take long enough to see the result at the end and talk about it.
It's going to extra time, dude.
Yep. Next up, Hoffenheim, the Bundesliga club.
I knew this one. I freaking knew this one. This is one of the ones I saw when I was looking at the when I was looking at them with Ryan. Oh man. It's not Dallas. I want to say Chicago, but I feel like I'm wrong. Jacob, I just stopped talking mid. Jacob's wife brought in brownies and ice cream for us, and I've been eating mine the whole time while he's like monologuing, and then I finally let him like get a chance to take a bite, and I just stopped talking immediately and looked at him.
We were hiding it pretty well until there. You said Chicago?
It's wrong. I already know.
It is not Chicago.
Let me look at this list again real quick of teams. It's it's an obscure one, I know. I don't know, man.
FC Cincinnati. And this happened, I think, their first year in the league, actually.
That freaking pisses me off. Oh. Yeah, dude. Freaking makes me mad. Because I should have got that one right.
Next up, FC Lugano, the Swiss Super League club.
Chicago.
Yeah. How'd you know that?
That one I remember seeing, actually.
That was instantaneous response. Well done.
I don't even know. I feel like my face just got really straight there when I said that, too.
It did.
Just lost all emotion.
Sporting CP, Ronaldo's former club.
Ooh. That one... That's New England.
It is New England, actually.
I remember because I was like, that's a weird like cold weather team. And it's like an obscure like northern team somewhere, yeah.
I believe there's weirdly a big like Portuguese population like up there or something like that. I don't know. Well done. Wolfsburg, another Bundesliga team.
Wolfsburg. I thought I remember this one from like a weird connection. Is it Orlando?
It is Orlando City, actually. Another one you don't really hear much about.
I was gonna say, yeah. A lot of these are like I'm kind of like vaguely remembering from when I was like looking over those teams with Ryan.
Next, the Arsenal football
That
club.
one's Colorado.
Yep.
Because Stan Kroenke owns both of those bad boys.
Yep. And I was going to say that when you guessed Colorado, because you guessed some Spurs, too. Because, yeah, Spurs did play there, Tottenham, in 2015. And, yeah, Arsenal has, like, a huge, like their logo, the Arsenal, like, crest is just, like, on a big wall in Colorado.
Really? That's weird.
Only one I can think of moving between is Austin Trusty. And, I mean, he's technically an Arsenal player just on loan.
He's on loan at Birmingham, but I think Mikel Arteta decided he wanted to keep him this next year instead of sending him on loan again because he was bossing it in the championship for them.
Next up, Inter Milan.
That one's Inter Miami.
Incorrect.
We already said Inter Miami for one. Shoot. Atlanta United.
Incorrect. DC United.
Ugh. What a weird connection.
When I looked this up, the last thing I saw on their website was in 2015 about Inter Milan. So
Weird.
another kind of older one. I don't know if it exists anymore. Aberdeen, the Scottish Premiership club.
Aberdeen. That one, I do not know. I don't remember even seeing that one. Aberdeen, I'm going to go with. I don't know, dude. I'm like forgetting what teams we've marked off on this. Jacob gave me a list of all the MLS teams that he read out, and I'm forgetting what teams we've already named on here. I'm going to go with Atlanta.
Correct.
Double A, baby. That was the only thing.
Scottish.
Reason why I said that.
Which is funny because it's like you were talking about. Atlanta used to have that massive pull. They got Tata Martino. They were sent out Miguel Almiron, and they were like getting these huge crowd numbers. They ended up with a global partnership with Aberdeen in the Scottish Premiership.
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it.
And finally, PSV from the Eredivisie in the Netherlands is linked with...
Is the only team we have left on here, if I'm not mistaken, Austin FC?
Austin FC. And, yeah.
That's a weird connection.
PSV.
So many of these are weird connections that you don't see utilized at all. Like Colorado, Arsenal makes sense. There's Bayern and FC Dallas you've seen moves, but a lot of these are just weird. Don't make any sense. Why? Why? I don't know. It's just
exactly. Weird. Interesting with Austin. They just got one of Pep Guardiola's assistant coaches or something as somebody in their FO,
sporting director. And he was a guy that had coached and then as well as been very involved in their front office stuff in Manchester City. So huge pickup for them. Guy that's gonna just, I think, revolutionize their club.
And I believe he's replacing Claudio Reyna, right? Because didn't he step down as
I think so, yeah. So big step up for Austin.
So to wrap this up, we're gonna do our 3-game prediction. Also, that Colorado Portland game got rescheduled to this week, so we'll add that score on for next week. Points as we stand, I have 38 points. Chase is 23, and in case you forgot, we get 3 points if we guess the exact result and the exact score correct. You get 1 point if you get the result correct and the score wrong, and then you get no points if you get everything wrong.
Respect.
Chase, are you ready?
Respect to your score because you've been kicking my butt.
Seattle is hosting FC Dallas. That's our first game. And I'm going for a 1-0 Seattle Sounders victory at home.
It's going to be an interesting game because Stephen Fry is still out. I mean, I know Steven Cleveland, I think is his name, just pulled out an insane save against Vancouver. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. From Sebastian Berhalter.
Yeah. Small world. So I'm sure he'll be high on confidence, but I also saw that guy just choke a game against the Timbers. So I think they'll be a little bit leakier in the back. I'm going to go 1-1 draw for this game.
And depending if Canada upsets us, maybe Jesus Ferreira will be back for this. I hope not. Austin hosting SKC. It was an interesting one to me because, Austin's got a couple big wins. SKC don't have that turnaround, but this is a tricky one. I went 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. I'm going SKC 3-1. I think SKC is going to cook these guys.
At Austin, at Q2 Stadium.
I think so. I'm not very impressed with Austin this year. I think their defense is going to be pretty rough.
I agree. Wrapping it up, Montreal versus hosting Charlotte in Montreal. I went for a 1-0 Charlotte win away.
Montreal's only been good at home this year. So that's why I think they're going to grind another result out. They're going to win 2-1. But I think I think Swiderski is going to pull something out of the bag and at least get a consolation goal for them.
Yeah, I think Charlotte's going to be pretty upset. They blew a 2-0, what could have been a statement win at home against Cincinnati, but then ended up drawing. So that does it for us.
What are we on now? 21. Week 21. Yeesh.
21 weeks of the MLS Net Boys.
You know what that is? That's 2-1. Infamous U.S. men's national team scoreline against Trinidad and Tobago.
Or 2-1, the 2021 MLS Cup final in which the Timbers lost in penalties at home.
It's a cursed scoreline for us as fans. We just lose 2-1 a lot in big games.
Now Chara, number 21, is going to tear his ACL next week in that
Don't
postponed
even
Colorado
say that,
game.
Dude. This is really, really off topic before we end the show, but I saw a video today of some baseball dad. It's like in a little bit of like a stadium, but all the fans are like up at the top of these bleachers watching, and he's just yelling at the umpire, and he gets ejected from the game, and he's just cussing, like making a big scene. And then as he's walking down the stairs, he slips and both his feet catch, and then he like his knees bend forward and his butt touches his heels on both sides. And I'm pretty sure he blew like both his ACLs.
Jeez.
Because he just like he gets stuck in like a 90-degree position with his legs and couldn't move after that. And it was just like,
Whole thing was on video?
yeah. I saw a lot of people just commenting like, "You get what you deserve. Let the kids play." And I'm like, "Jeez." It's like
Some poor guy might be just like injured for life.
it was like an older guy. It was just like a middle-aged dad there, just probably too competitive, trying to live through his son at a baseball game, but ends up blowing out both his ACLs.
It's a heck of a story to bring up.
Yeah,
Let's,
anyways, that's been week 21.
Chase is a youth soccer coach. Yeah, what's the worst, right off the top of the head on the spot, what's the worst fan interaction you've had?
I've had as a coach? Oh, man.
Maybe not towards you, but just something you've seen.
I was going to say, I've been pretty blessed. I've had really good parents of kids I've coached. I haven't had any issues with parents ever. I think worst is there was one game I coached where one of the kids, his two older brothers were there watching, and they were giving the ref a hard time. And then the ref like made a comment to them, and they were both like high schoolers at the time. And I think one was middle school, one was high school. And then the ref made a comment to them that was kind of rude. And another dad stepped up and started like threatening the referee. And the referee had to run over to me and in like a very shaky voice say that the dad had threatened to like meet him in the parking lot and like beat him up or something, and told me I had to go eject the parent from the game, or else the game would be like disbanded and my team would lose. So I had to go tell the dad, I was like, "You can go stand on that hill and watch the rest of this game, but we're gonna lose if you don't leave."
Jeez, was he cool about it, or the dad?
Yeah, he was cool with me about it. He knew what he had said was wrong, but I think he was upset because the ref was like saying some pretty rude stuff to like kids, just because the kids were like heckling him. So I think he got kind of fired up, and it was a pretty snarky ref. We had him multiple times. He was not a fun ref to have, but
Maybe he's a listener.
maybe. I mean, I've had my fair share run-ins with the refs, so if you see me again this season, please be nice to me.
So that's going to wrap it up. Episode 21 of the MLS Net Boys show. So, Chase, as always,
Keegan Hughes, come on the show.